Alright, subpart E, exemption transaction, Title 49, U.S. Standard Code 1092 for Class 3 railroad cars, 115041, scope of the exemption with is identified and indicated by the paragraphs A through D of the section exemption applied with the acquisition operation of the Class 3 carriers under Section 1092, with the exemption of the include the acquisition Class 3 rail carriers rail property that would be operated with the third-party operation of the Class 3 rail carrier with the rail property is acquired with a third-party chain for the operator such for the line acquisition of the incidental trackage right, include with the agreement with the trackage right with the sale of the acquisition trackage the rights of the operator over the line with the third party occur at the time of the purchase. 115042 for the procedure relevant to the date of the small line acquisition exemption with apply with the acquisition of the rail line with the projection avenue revenue together with the acquiring carrier with the projection of the annual revenue. Do not exceed the annual revenue of the Class 3 railroads qualified with the exemption. Class 3 railroads carrier the applicant must be filed with a verified notice of detail with about the transaction brief caption with a summary of the conformity to the forming 115044 publication Federal Register. The exemption will be effective 30 days after the notice is filed with the board with the director of the officer of the proceeding. Published notice of the Federal Register within 16 days of the filing. The chain of the operation must follow the provision 115044 notice that must be given to shippers if the notice contains the misleading information of the exemption and void ABO initio of the petition revoked with the Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1052, but it does not automatically stay with the exemption. Stay with the petition must be filed within 7 days before exemption becomes effective. Application preserved intact with all the site of the construction within more than 50 years old with the complying with the requirements of the Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, Title 16, U.S. Standard Code 47. 0F is achieved. The project annual revenue rail lines of the acquired operator together with the acquiring carrier projects the annual revenue exceeds $5 million. Application must at least 60 days before the exemption become effective with the notice of the applicant intent with the undertake with the proposed transaction with the workplace employee with effective line. Serve the copy with the notice on the National Office of the Labor of the Union with the employee with effective with the line. Set forth the type of the number of the joint jobs expected to be available. The term of the employment of the principal of the employee section in the line that they are to be transferred. The certified of the board has done. 115043. Information contained with the notice of small line acquisition, full name and address of the Class 3 rail carriers applicant, the name and address and telephone number of the representative of the applicant who should receive the corresponding statement of the agreement that has briefed the details about the agreement will be reached. The operator of the property, the brief summary of the proposed transaction, could be the name and address of the railroad transfer from the subject property of the Class 3 rail carrier, the proposed time schedule for the consumption of the transaction, both the subject of the property with the involved, including the branch line with the total route with the miles that have been required with the map clearly indicate the area to be served with including the origins, termini station of the city of the county and state with the certificate of the applicant proposed with the revenue the result of the transaction, result of the creation of the Class 2, Class 1 rail carriers requiring processing under 115045. Alright, your interchange commitments. The filing party must certify whether or not proposed acquisition operation rail line involved with the proposing and the agreement that may limited with further interchange with the third party connected with the failure care of the outright prohibition per penalty adjustment if the purchase price of the rental of the positive economic inducement of the mean with the interchange commitment for the provision found with additional information must provide with the information paragraph the H1247 and with the section filed with the board with the Title 49 1104 14A will be kept confidential with the need of the filing with the accompanying motion of the protective under Title 49 1104 14B. This for the provisions agreement the identification of the effective interchange points of the confidential completion version of the documents contained with the addressing of the provision agreement. List of shippers that currently have been used the line with the question of the last 2 years the aggregated number of the carrier loads of the shipper was specified with the paragraph H13 of the section original determined with the confidential certification of the filing with the party has provided the notice of the proposed transaction interchange with the commitment of the shipper identified with the paragraph H13 section listed third party railroad with physical interchange with the line sought to be acquired with the lease the estimated difference between the state and lease price without the interchange commitment with the confidential chain with the case with the caption with the existing interchange with the commitment with the parent with the case with the title with the obtainment with the information over the interchange commitment with the use of the use aim of the proceeding with the board with the shipper the other effective with the party may be granted with any with the assure with the exit of the confidential document the pursuit with the paragraph of the H1 with the section following with the everything of the position motion of the acts of the confidential document containing explanation party need with the information of the confidential unappropriate draft protected with the confidential undertaken with the will ensure with the document for the confidential kept confidential. Our deadlines reply with the motion active with the due with the 5 years after the motion is filed. Board will rule with the motion active with the 30 days after the motion is filed. The parties must produce the relevant documents within 5 days of the receipt of the board approved of the signing of the confidential agreement. Alright, 115044, caption summary. The caption summary must be in the following form of the information summarized with the number identified with the keys as follows. Serve the transportation notice exemption, serve the transportation finance doc, number 1, exemption 2 and 3. As filed with the notice exemption 2 and 3 for line with between 4 of the comments must be filed with the board within serve 5 and 6 for the key, the symbol, the name of the one requiring operating or the line. Tip of the transaction to the acquire operate with the transfer. 4, describe the line. 5. The additional representative of the director of the telephone number. 6. Cross-reference for the other class exemptions being used. For the notes of the under file 49 CFR 1150-41, notice of containing the false misleading information exemption for the B of the A be an issue of the filing petition and revoke with the will not automatically stay with the transaction. Alright, 1150-45, procedure for the relevant date of the transaction under Class 1092 with the involved with the creation of Class 1, Class 2 rail carrier. The qualified exemption application and serve with the notice of intent of the filing notice exemption no later than 14 days of the notice exemption filed with the board. Applicant must comply with the notice requirement 1150-42E. Alright, your notice of the intent must contain all the information 1150-43 with the plus for the general statement, the service of the intention for the general statement, the labor impact for the notice of the intent must be served with the governor, each of the state with which for the track to be sold, the state with the Department of Transportation, equal agent of the National Office of Labor, union with the employees of the effective of the lines, serve the representative of the 50% of the volume of the local traffic originating the termination of the line with the most 12 months, whichever the data available at the beginning with the larger stripper with the working down. Application must also be able with the notice exemption conform with the with the paragraph B with the section 1150-44 with the certifying with the complying with the A and B with the C with the notice of the attaching with the copy of the notice of the intent in addition with the written submission. Notice submitted within 3.5 floppy disk or diskette with the formatted with WordPerfect 5.1. The submission will be 45 days with the notice of file with the board with the director of office for the procedure will publish the notice of the Federal Register with the 16 days of the filing. Alright, if your notice contains false, misleading information for the exemption of the AB initio of the position revoked with the Title 49-1052, the E that does not automatically assume the transaction state petition must be filed within 14 days before the exemption becomes effective. Replies will be due 7 days thereafter. The conservative essay of the petition must timely be served with the applicant. Applicants must serve the intact with the site structure for more than 50 years until they comply with the requirements of the Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, Title 16 U.S. Standard Code 470F is achieved. Part 151, Federal Railroad Development Program.